Long live the revolutionary spirit of Comrade Paul Daphne. Long live. Let me firstly recognize the family, relatives, friends, honored guests, all protocol observed. It has indeed been a tough week for a number of us. It has been a tough week for myself for a number of reasons. And one of those reasons is when I look at Comrade Paul's life and I look at my country, I've never seen such contrast in my life. The contrast is indeed scary. It would not be an exaggeration if I were to say, and I'm prepared to put my head on the block for that, if I were to say, if the number of people were here were metamorphosed into Paul Daphne, we probably not be able to see a lot of the misery we see in our country. And it's quite baffling as to why things could be so. Why is it when the direction in which we all should march, only 1, 2, 3 or so follow that direction that would bring about the change we desire? Those who had a chance to read my tribute to my soulmate, my comrade, my brother, my everything, would have noted that I referred to him as a humble revolutionary. The use of those words was quite deliberate. As I was selecting those words, one thing that I remembered, I used to do a lot of work in Nigeria, including the transformation under President Obasanjo. I was one of the teams there. And what used to amuse me, as you walk in the corridors of government, suddenly you see men with dark glasses, dark suits, and you knew you had to give way. You knew there must be a minister about to appear. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the characterization of leadership. And then I said, oh, by the way, I see something similar in my country. A characterization of leadership. Leadership which is associated with my power. Leadership which is associated with the power I have. Where people would remind me, Job, please listen to that leader. He's got power. For Pete's sake, what nonsense. If you want to understand what power is, you ask Paul Daphne to teach you about servant leadership. That I am a leader on condition. I've got an open mind, an open will, an open heart to accept that before I do anything, they need my service. that the power of my leadership is defined from the perspective of those who are yearning for my services. And indeed, if you look at my actions, if you look at my character, if you look at whatever that defines me, that definition is manifest in those that should be served and that are served, hopefully. Whether you looked at Paul, the academic, whether you looked at Paul, the husband, the father, whether you looked at him as an activist, as an ANC member, whether you looked at him as a technocrat, and I tried to deal with this very, very simple thing about politics and governance, which some of us have made it so unnecessarily difficult. But that was Paul Daphne. The immense power that used to ooze out of Paul Daphne was some kind of a contrast, in the sense that you could feel, you could engage, you could be animated by this power, but that resides in a very humble man. You see, because you and I belongs to that paradigm of leadership which is associated with, I've got power over you. As I say, that's empty nonsense, which we see on a daily basis when the so-called leaders flex their muscle just to remind you they are leaders. I want you to remind me that you are indeed a leader when those people not only stop having sewage in the street in front of the house, in the yard, and in the house. And it is no exaggeration. One of the reasons why, when I was in government, I knew no Christmas, no New Year, including other few colleagues, was simply because I just could not justify my existence when I knew in places like Zeerast and other places that somebody is sitting there, a family is sitting there on a Christmas, and there is sewage, they're battling with sewage in the house because of this powerful leader. And Honorable Premier, I align myself with the suggestion of research, because I really think that one of the things that we have to do is to pull apart and dissect and understand the human being called Paul Daphne, and see how can we infuse the values of this wonderful human being into this thing that we falsely call the public service. In many instances, we falsely call government. Because we've got to feel and see and experience that which you purport to be. Not the misery that you see. All you have to do take a notebook, sit in front of a TV, and listen to leaders talk about when are we going to resolve the energy crisis. If you have never seen variety, I'm telling you. And once you finish listening to that, and you say, good grief, where the hell are we? You ask yourself that question. So one thing that I've learned from Comrade Paul has been what really servant leadership is all about. Not only have I had the opportunity to read books on servant leadership, I have had the distinguished and rare opportunity to live with this servant leadership. Indeed, a very remarkable man. When I reflect on his life, and again, just trying to fathom and understand, despite the fact that I lived for so many years with him, just who this human being is. I'm reminded by a man called Bill O'Brien, who said, amongst others, the following: the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. Which actually begins to open my eyes to understand why in a number of areas, I'm not saying in all, we have the leaders that we often experience. When I look at the absence of services, just when we're about to go for a festive break, and we are hoping that in order to raise our GDP, we'll see numbers rising in the tourism. Then a leader somewhere in the country says, tourists will not be able to go to our beaches because there is sewage all over the place. But why? Somebody was telling me the other day, you know, I wanted to visit my aunt, and I wanted to get there by train. I never knew that human beings can steal a station, because when I got to the station, there was no station. I thought that was a lot of madness, but indeed, if you go to that station and there's no station anymore, because it has been vandalized, and there's no rail, it was not madness that this person said, I could not go to my aunt because I have found no station. And so the list just carries on and on. It is very, very hurting and very painful for us who had become so parasitic and dependent on Paul to see him go. But perhaps from his perspective, we should envy him. Because while we remain with the challenges that are upon us, with no clear strategies of intervention, I hear many people say, what's going to happen in 2024? What's going to happen? The fundamental problem I have with that question, although it is understandable to be raising that kind of question, informed by uncertainty, informed by the current conditions in our land, I think we should also ask ourselves, what am I? What are we collectively contemplating, planning, and implementing so that we make tomorrow, we make 2024, we make 2025 a less scary eventuality that we anticipate. It cannot be that we should perpetually be sitting back and waiting for government, waiting for so-and-so, waiting for Paul Daphne to fix that future for us. It's got to be grabbed by our two hands. It's got to be within our hands to make sure that we influence. It is an open secret that some groups in our society, when confronted with difficulties, they come together, and lo and behold, within no time, there is a university that they have built. Lo and behold, there is a college that they have built. And whilst we're getting mesmerized by these things, we have a national goalie whose murder we are unable to resolve or to solve. But then in our midst are those people who are able to piece things together and say, we can get the culprit, and they get the culprit. And I'm sure if all of us could just take a little from Comrade Paul Daphne, we would rise, we would stop the culture of sitting back, of wondering what's going to happen in the future. You know, you imagine a mother or a father sitting there, deeply depressed, weeping, and you say, what is the problem? And this person says, I'm sitting here, I'm imagining my little child running around there, and there comes a car, it hits the child, and oh, my child dies, and the weeping just gets worse. Purely hypothetical, but the extent of emotion is unbelievable. Sometimes I think we're no different from this person who creates a scenario and acts emotionally as though that scenario has become reality. And it is about time that we got off from our backsides and start influencing our own destiny and start influencing our own future. For we have the ability to do so. Why is it that that man you'll see in Poch would put together some sand, some little stones, and fill potholes just so that there should be less damage to cars that are passing? The poor man is unemployed, but is able to feed his family because the bottlers that go past give him one tip after the other. So he has seen a problem, and he has said, certainly, I'm not going to blame my government. Yes, somebody should be doing that. But what is this somebody doing about it? So, ladies and gentlemen, we have been warned not to talk too much, So let me taper towards the end. Honorable Premier, I think if we take this man's soul, if we take his values and start infusing this into our program of renewal, in our institutions, organizations across the board, we'll start a powerful revolution that will get us to this destination that we so much yearn for. I have been particularly fortunate to have worked alongside this wonderful human being. And indeed, in the process, I've learned a lot. Towards the end of last year, I don't know if it was a question of premonition. I was doing community work around this district, Nakamutiri Mulema. And they said, let me spend a weekend with my soulmate. And once I said to him, Paul, I'm coming over. He was so excited and he said, oh, I'm going to organize a prayer for you. And we sat around the fire, reminiscing and thinking about this, that, and the other. And also thinking about the future. And I would like to say to family, thank you very much for giving us this man. Laura, thanks for the wonderful years. You and Yvonne Mokgoro were very instrumental in pumping life into us, so that when it is time to go, we'll go. You know, if there's one thing that Yvonne is very sensitive about, is gender insensitivity. And so one time, I had informed our comrades that I got a piece of intelligence that Monday at 4 o'clock we're all going to be raided. So in our typical style, we spread the message, don't sleep at home. And so Yvonne will tell you that when the security forces came looking for me at around 4, as we had been warned, he said, where is Job Mokgoro? He said, I don't know where he is. He didn't sleep home. He said, you are lying. You know where he is. He said, no, I'm a Tswana woman. A Tswana woman never asks her husband, where are you going? And so we would like to say thank you to you for leading us, for injecting this diesel so that we should be propelled and do what is necessary. And so Paul has left us with a beautiful piece of consolation, a value system that would help to wipe off our tears, and that will help us to go further and achieve that dreamland that all of us would like to be at. Thank you very much.